And it helps build a scene that our world can live in without just falling into the nothingness of the dark abyss that is all of our future. All right, people, let's get into it. Today we are talking about how to light nighttime exteriors. So far in this series, we've talked about how to light a bar, how to light small spaces, how to light car interiors, and today we're talking about night exteriors. If you have not watched this series yet, link is up over here to that playlist. Do make sure that you take a look at those because everything we talk about in this series is kind of building on a lot of the principles and the concepts that we have already discussed.
Probably get 20 years. Parking next to a fire hydrant and no parking down in the wrong direction.
So let's dive into how we lit this scene. There is a gel color when filming at night, which we would call like a metallic silver or a blue silver, depending on the look that you're going for, because the moon actually doesn't give off cool light. It is a neutral gray light or a white light that it gives off. But I wanted this to be a bit more stylized, a bit more nuanced and interesting because we're in this very industrial looking space. I wanted the light to be much bluer than night really would. So for that, what we did is we took a 2x1 Gemini light because it is a fairly large and bright fixture, and we put that up behind the scene, kind of illuminating the entirety of this loading dock that we were in. I powered the thing off of batteries, and I put a softbox over the front just to make the fixture that was already pretty big a little bit bigger, because I wanted to cast that light over the entire scene. And just because it is a large light source, a 2x1 is a decent sized light, especially when you put a softbox over the front of it. Because it's so bright, I was able to back it up enough that the light still behaved much more like a hard light would. Because again, the relative size of that fixture against the distance to our subject made a really nice light that looked hard without being overtly sourcey. Now that our moonlight is set up, the next two lights that we're going to talk about are going to be about motivating light. Motivated lights, by the way, are where there is a practical light that's either on camera or off camera, but a light that exists in the space that doesn't behave the way that we want it to. So we need to boost or motivate that light to get it to behave the way that we want to on camera while still being a practical within that space. So the first fixture we're going to talk about in terms of motivated lights is going to be a sodium vapor light. Now we've talked about this type of light before. Again, link up over there to the night car sequence that we filmed, but sodium vapor lights are often used, especially in industrial areas, because they are very, very bright lights. They're also very, very orange, and this location had such a sodium vapor light off camera. So we were getting a little bit of that orange spill, which actually contrasted and complemented the blue from our moonlight quite nicely, but it wasn't hitting in the areas that I wanted. So to direct that light where I wanted, we took a 1x1 softbox and put a 60-degree cloth grid on it to really focus where that light was and eliminate spill. We put it up on a light stand, shown it high in the sky, again, battery powered, and pointed it down kind of at about a 45-degree angle on our talent. But I wanted this sodium vapor light in both of these spaces. So with that in mind, I didn't need to move the light from place to place when I went from my first setup to the second setup. All I had to do was rotate it. So I took the light that was on the stand and I simply rotated it about 30 degrees. So then instead of going down the wall, it then went and pointed down at the loading dock. A really simple way where when we light correctly that we can eliminate downtime. I'm not setting up entirely new scenes. I'm not setting up entirely new lighting setups. I can simply tweak or change the lighting setups that I have that make a big impact on the looks that we're going for. Okay, this then brings us to our third fixture, which is the white light that is on the opposite side of the loading dock. If we look at the scene where we're at the telephone, directly above our character, we have this white work light, right? Like a security light that's pointed straight down. And it's a decent light. It's nice and bright. It gives us a very hard directional light, which works really well for my space. There wasn't another light like that on the other side of the loading dock, and because of that, that side of the loading dock got really dark really quickly. The light fell off and didn't carry very far. So all I did is I wanted to create another one of those lights that would be implied off camera. So as we're looking through our scene, when you see that one light source, then you see white light coming from the other side of the loading dock, the audience would just simply assume that there's another one of those lights on the other side. And of course, because we're placing our own light over there, that gives us all of the freedom in the world in terms of how we have that light positioned, where it goes, where it's pointed, and how that then helps build our world. So with that, I then took the new 1x1 Gemini Hard, which, if you know anything about panel lights, the 1x1 Hard is actually 5 times brighter than the 1x1 Soft. And as the name implies, the light that it emits and produces is hard light versus soft light. So where the soft light gives us a nice wrap, diffused light source, the 1x1 Hard gives us a much more directional light, which is how I wanted the light to behave, just like the practical that we had on set. So I took this 1x1 Gemini Hard and I put barn doors on it again to sculpt the light. I didn't really want to put a grid on it or a honeycomb or anything like that because I didn't want to break up the light in any way. I just wanted to shape it down. So I put barn doors on it and I put the light super high, just clipping right where we had this kind of concrete protrusion out of the wall. And I pointed it down and across into my scene, kind of opposite where my blue light was. And that light served two purposes. One, it was general ambiance for the entirety of the scene, but two, it worked as a really nice hair light or rim light. When we're down at the loading dock, you can see that we have kind of all three of these lights playing across the face, where we have a little bit of that orange that's hitting camera right. We then have the blue wash, which is kind of a dark within our scene. And then we have this really bright white light that's coming down and across on camera left. Those three lights working in connection with each other makes a very contrasty, very moody look that still reads like it's night. And obviously it was much brighter in real life than it looked on camera, and that was very intentional. In fact, the light was so bright the way that we had it lit that we actually put ND, or neutral density, on the camera itself to then stop down the amount of light that we were playing with, so that way it looked much more like it was night. Again, getting that perfect exposure. If, by the way, you want to know how to expose your camera based on the image that you're looking at, the easiest way to do that is to use a tool called false color. A couple of cameras have false color built in, mostly cinema cameras, but generally you will find that as a tool within your monitor. If you have a camera monitor with kind of higher end settings, you will find false color in there. It looks a lot like Predator Vision. You can then learn about Predator Vision / false color up over there. But when you expose your image properly, regardless of the lighting setup that you're in, it's going to give you a lot of latitude in post to do really cool color grading and such on that. So we have our moonlight and we have our two motivated lights. The last light that we were playing with was actually being used as a practical on set. It's not even a motivated light. Motivated lights are enhancing lights that exist. We're creating practical lights, so lights that aren't there that we're treating as sources. And the ones that I'm talking about are actually against the garage door. If you look at the roll-up door in the background, we have these three up lights that are kind of illuminating that space. We put those lights there. And those lights are small little LED panels called Lycos Plus lights, also from Light Panels, and they're battery powered using standard Sony L batteries. And I was able to tune both the brightness and the Kelvin or CCT value of that light because they are bicolor. So I dimmed those lights all the way down. I think it was like to 2%, maybe 3%. And I put 3 of them in a row and I put them behind the plastic curtain that was already there. And I used that as uplighting again to create depth within our scene. If I didn't have those, the background kind of just fell into nothingness, into darkness, because we had all of this light kind of coming back onto our subject with the moonlight casting just a bit of blue light across the face. So the background got real dark. By adding those lights nobody is going to notice that those lights weren't supposed to be there. They just feel as though they're part of the scene. But by adding some light behind, even though it's not coming onto our subject, it's just kind of illuminating that background, it gives context and placement to our characters, and it helps build a scene that our world can live in without just falling into the nothingness of the dark abyss that is all of our future. And that's it. Moonlight, 2 motivated lights, and creating 3 practicals. That is how we lit this entire scene, and the only lighting adjustments we made from setup 1 to setup 2 was rotating the sodium vapor looking light just about 30 degrees to just change the direction in which it was pointed. All of the lights were powered by battery because we didn't have any power outlets where we were, and we were able to use lights at a ranging from 2% intensity all the way to 100% intensity to then get us that final look. As with all of these videos, the actual light fixtures that I use are not the thing that is important in terms of how we get these lights. I do have links to the stuff that I use below if you want to invest in those lights. The things that are important is for whatever your budget is, to buy the brightest, most accurate light your budget can afford you. The light panels for me are the brightest, most accurate lights that my budget can afford. And because of that, I'm able to light whole spaces and not faces. I'm able to light bright. I am able to get the looks and control the looks and the color intensity and all of the things that I want to do to create the looks that we talk about in this series. But you don't have to have those lights to make this look. It's much more about the principles of light and the behavior of light and how we can shape and color and mold light to get the looks that we want. I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, do me 2 favors. 1, give this video a like, and 2, subscribe and click that little bell icon so you know when more of these come out. And as always, I will see you in the next episode.